All right, hello and welcome. It is Tuesday, August 23rd, and we are here in our fourth and final week. You have completed the most recent round of submissions for week three, and week three is the largest amount of content, the more challenging of the compositions overall, kind of the peak of the class, and things should hopefully tail down a bit here, calm down a bit in the last week as we head into the home stretch and kind of wrap everything up. So you submitted the week three composition for Palace of Orinthalion. You also have a round of revisions from week two. But here in the last week, week four, our main focus here is to discuss how you might take everything that you've learned and gotten started with in the class, the knowledge, the projects that you worked on, and put it into its best format to display out to future clients and future employers to kind of show off your work in a game. Not only is the class designed to introduce you to this side of the industry, but it also is to give you the material, demo material, games, and projects to show off. You got all of the games, working, functioning Mac games that have your music and sound effects working in them. You have video captures of those games, and how do we kind of put it all together into a final package to show off. So, along with our discussion of our new week four assignments, we have a couple of submissions here. Looks like 6 submissions for review from the Palace of Orinthalion composition. So you'll notice that I have things vertically laid out, one on top of each other, so that they can play together at the same time. So we will start out our session with a discussion of our last week projects and a couple of those submissions, and then we will get into the new week's projects for coming up for week 4. Let's see. Let me go ahead and load up the grade sheet. So we'll have something to chat about here online. Actually, I think I need to pull it from over here. I apologize. My computer is running at its own pace. The way it wants to right now. So I'm going to just wait right along with it. Campus, week 3, Palace of Orinthalion. All right. We are letting that load up. All right. Wow. And nearly a minute later, we have one PDF file loaded at the amazing blazing pace that my Mac is running at. All right. So, a couple of things that we are discussing for the Palace of Orinthalion composition. The main thing is that we need to make sure all 4 of them have the chance to play together, and when they do play together, they are playing back correctly. So as I said before, you'll notice that all four of these are stacked right on top of each other. I will be playing the part of the computer and mixing the different files up and down. Oh, my video is nice and stuttery. So we have 4 faders for each of the 4 tracks here. And as we mix these levels up and down, they will be playing together. So the first thing is earth, wind, fire, and water. Each one of those represents their own musical theme in the game. They need to have enough instrumentation so that they make sense when they play on their own. But when they are playing together, the main thing we're listening for is no clashing in either rhythm or harmony or melody, in the pitch, in the pattern or the pacing of everything. This means the cues all need to start at the same time, they need to end at the same time, and they need to loop together. They need to be in the same key, and they need to be at the same tempo and time signature so that they fit. Earth, wind, fire, and water. The earth cue represents the hero and the hero's journey, so it's going to be a little bit more upbeat and peppy and heroic and adventurous and optimistic. This is made up of solo handheld instruments, not using large orchestral instrumentation. The wind cue represents a stealth element or danger. It's not actually the battle at this point, so a lower end instrumentation, maybe some bigger percussion, with a little bit of melody peppered in on a higher range or octave so that it makes sense when it plays, so it kind of balances out the high and the low. The fire cue is the most powerful cue. It is going to need the strongest instrumentation with the full brass, string, woodwinds, and percussion. Throw the full orchestra at it. It should be the biggest and loudest and strongest cue overall. And the water cue is the emotional cue with a strong emotional lead melody. The melody is going to be the focus more for the earth cue and the water cue. The fire cue and wind are more about the texture. Fire is all about the power, and the wind is more about the kind of the low end and creepiness and a little bit of intimidation of the battle that's coming up. We need to make sure all of the files loop properly. The rest of this is pretty standard across all of the different compositions. We need to make sure all of the files loop properly at either 16 bars or 32 bars. You need to make sure it develops all the way through. Don't just do a 4-bar loop that goes 4 times or 8 times to create 16 or 32 bars. Don't repeat phrasing or instrumentation also. You can have, let's say, a viola in multiple different cues, but don't repeat instrumentation or don't repeat the same exact performance on that same viola in multiple different cues, or else it will just double up everything. Like if you had the same snare drum pattern in all 4 cues, then when you played all 4 of them together, it would double up 4 times, and that snare would be 4 times as loud as you actually intended it to be. That typically goes towards mix. With the mix cue, with the mix category, you want to make sure when the game plays everything, all 4 of these faders are going to be at unity, and you want to make sure that it doesn't overload the master overall. So you want to make sure the levels that you bounce out make sense when all played together. Nothing is lost in the mix. Nothing really sticks out or overrides other elements in the mix. Formatting, delivery, screenshots, video, that's pretty common across all of the cues and should be pretty well known at this point of how things technically should be set up for these games. So just visually looking over everything. I can probably zoom in a little bit more. All right, so they all need to be the same length. So this one looks pretty good. Starts at the end, starts at the same time, ends, loops together. The levels might be a little bit loud when all 4 of them play back, but we'll check that out. This one, all the same length. That should work. Fire queue should be the loudest, so it does look louder than the 4 other queues. Same thing here. This one looks good, at least visually. Starts and ends at the same time. This one's going to cause issues in playback in the game because all 4 of them end, and they all end at different times. So when it loops around, the music will start and stop at different times. These both look pretty good. This one looks like it ends at the very top here, so we'll take a listen there, but the rest, visually, these look like they are set to go. This one looks probably a bit loud overall as all 4 of them play together. It will probably overload the stereo master. So something to consider there. Otherwise, I think we are set to go to listen to these. Again, I'm going to be mixing these 4 cues just like the game would, and I'm going to raise them up and listen to them one at a time, and then at the end I will play all 4 of them. And it's going to draw things. Okay. There you go, Logic. Oh, okay. Phew. Thought my archive had crashed. There was something else that crashed. Bad things are happening on my computer. It's a bad day today. Okay. Let's see what we have here. Let's start with the Earth cue. Alright, so we have string section. There's some really tense chords in there, some tense intervals that will probably be hard to resolve or use in multiple different cues. It's also, I would go less towards ensemble strings, go for individual strings, use fiddles and probably just small individual string elements, and then woodwinds and other additional instrumentation than using a full string section. Also watch the loop. We're going to jump over to the wind cue. Each cue needs to have more instrumentation. They do clash. So I would probably thin out the chords that are used through these and have more movement between counter melodies. A lot of sustain sitting on the chords, a bit more movement overall. The wind cue works a little bit better in the instrumentation in the lower range, but could use a bit of percussion. And there is a melody in there that's just quite far back in the mix. Let's go to the fire cue. The fire cue really sounds like you have different sections. Like this is all strings, this is all winds, this is all brass, or at least very focused in those directions. So mix up the instrumentation across the cues. This one definitely needs percussion. Much power of the instrumentation, the level of the instrumentation is good, but needs to have more movement, more kind of maybe more staccato punches, add a bit of power. The water cue. Percussion could be over in the fire cue. instrumentation also occupies lots of power in multiple frequency ranges. Lots of things occupy mids, low mids, and so the power of each one of the instrumentation on large, heavy, sustained chords kind of mush all together, and so you could have a little bit more movement to define and make room for other cues, or sorry, other instrumentation in there. All right, so make sure that all four of them fit together, and make sure that you have enough room within the instrumentation so that when all four of them are playing, it fits well. All right, let's try the next one here. Let's go over to the earth cue. All right, the melody works out well. Could probably either use a counter melody or some more harmonic instrumentation. Feels kind of sparse between the flute and the rest of the harmonic instrumentation, which is, it's either some sort of plucked guitar, maybe, almost sounds like a harpsichord, but so, and there's a little bit of percussion, maybe more from melody's fine, more from the harmony and the percussion pattern. Although the percussion doesn't need much more. Let's do the wind cue. The wind sounds a little bit sparse. It could also have a bit more movement in it. More instrumentation. You got really occupied in the lower mids and the lows. You do have the lead melody at the higher range, that works. But mostly, I mean, the cellos help, but there's some bass in there. Maybe it's probably just more from the cellos. You could probably maybe build a little ostinato pattern between cellos and violas to help. Just you got that growl from the bass, fills up most of it, but it could really have a couple of other layers to support the melody. Let's go with the fire cue here. Really works. Yeah, that fits. Maybe the strings and the drums could come up a little bit, just a tad bit to play into the brass. But it's structured well and has a nice, really notable melody. And this one works. This works well also. Memorable melody, fits the progression. Let's bring all the different elements together. Right, so everything fits nicely together. Nothing really. The wind gets lost a little bit, or probably the most in all of the four cues. But the melodies from the fire cue and the earth cue and the water cue fit well and project nicely through the mix. All right, here, looking at this one, looks like the water and the wind cue might be a little bit low in volume, but we'll see how it fits and plays together. Here's the earth cue. Just want to check a few things here. Alright, I just wanted to make sure the first half and the second half of the cue sound quite similar. You could probably have just more variation. It's probably from the pattern and the rhythm of the chords. That could help to change up a bit more, provide a bit more variation through the full 16 bars. Let's go to the wind loop. Yeah, this is going to be a bit sparse, just kind of holding the chords, needs a melody. The instrumentation can work. Yeah, just a bit more movement to outline the melody and the more of the progression. The mix is kind of dominated by the bass drum. It could be brought back. You could also add in a snare to help with the rhythm. Doesn't need to be so powerful. It's kind of pushing around the rest of the instrumentation. Also work more on sections rather than, I mean, it works to write individual lines per brass instrument, but fill it out with more instrument layers. There is some other strings in there, that's other brass that's kind of buried in the background that could also be brought up to help. And the water cue. Again, too sparse. Strings work, but it needs a melody, needs more instrumentation to kind of fill it out. Watch the repetition in the progression. See how all of them work together. definitely sounds like there's more elements in there. They're kind of buried in the mix. Work on panning and EQ to help carve out elements or areas for each instrument to lie, or each section at least. So good elements. Once you add the fire and the earth cue in there, the water and the wind cue do get kind of lost in the mix. So watch out for how those fit together. All right, let's see here. All right, for our next one, this is going to cause an issue in playback. Number one, for the gaps at the end, and number two, for the lengths of the files. And then I'm going to guess that they probably are not in the same tempo or time signature, so that they will probably clash against each other. So let's see what happens when we play. Not sure the Kodo really works for the vibe of this particular game, sort of in the location and time period that it is set. Now let's bring in a wind cue. Fire. Water. All right, this feels like it was built as 4 separate songs that are not intended to play at the same time. So you're going to really need to center around a central progression, theme, instrumentation, so that you make sure you work with the bass composition first. Work with the, probably the best way to start is using a piano, writing out the chord progression, and then building up the individual melodies against that chord progression so that they are all intended to play together. Because what will ultimately happen in the game when these are going to play back it ends up jumbling all of them together, playing back at different tempos and in different keys that prevent proper playback. It sounded like you have individual ideas to work with, so choose one central idea and base the rest of the composition off of that. Right. Let me zoom in here. All right, I think we should be good. Some notes that are out of the key and the harmonic, the counterpoint harmony. So you have the right idea of melody, counter melody, but make sure they fit against each other. Add a little bit more percussion to help with the rhythm. It also feels like the instrumentation stops before it loops, so make sure you create a seamless loop with the instrumentation in the earth cue. There's some clashing between the wind and the earth cue. Again, watch out for it stopping. You want to avoid that. You do have the instrumentation in the lower range. The melody, or really just feels like a harmonic line because of the repetition, with the pluck in the higher range. Really focus on a melodic lead line that lasts through the whole cue. Let's go to the fire cue. All right, you got the right direction, right vibe through the cue. Again, there's some notes that don't fit over entirely, like that one, to make it sure that all of the harmonies and the intervals work against each other. Also, watch the repetition. It kind of almost feels like the machine gun fire with the repeating trumpet note. Use a bit of velocity variation in the MIDI, and like that. That interval's going to be a little too tense, but use a little velocity variation in each one of the MIDI notes to create more of a realistic experience when hitting those repetitions. The overall volume and power of this does override the other cues. Plus, there's some really tense dissonance at points through there. And the fire cue. Oh, I'm sorry, the water cue. That's where we are. Again, feels a little sparse. Needs more elements to support. Even really feels more like the harmonic line. Build in a melody. That feels more melodic, but it certainly needs the rest of the instrumentation to support it. Let's bring in... Main thing will be the melody, the clashing notes, making sure all of the cues work against each other. Watch out for the overall levels of this fire cue against the other cues. And our last submission here. We'll start with Earth. I like the feel of it. Percussion works well. Could have more instrumentation to support the piano line. Melody works. Now, here's a consideration. The way that it is intended for this game, with these this particular Earth cue, is that the music would actually be played by characters in the game. So when I say that the music comes from a group of musicians with small handheld instrumentation, that might be like the local town entertainers or bards or jester or somebody in entertaining the king or queen or the local town lord or lady. This would be a group of actual musicians that played in the game. and the instrumentation that they use would actually be modeled and created. And so having a piano may not really fit, because more than likely they're not going to wheel a piano out into the middle of the street to play this particular line. So that would be the main suggestion here, would be to use instrumentation that is actually in a character's hands being played and animated when hearing this music. So another one or two instrument layers added to support that line, then move the piano melody there over to a flute or a harp or something like that. The wind cue. This is going to be too sparse. The drums help to keep that pace. But more than just the choir really shouldn't be the focus. The choir can support other strings, maybe some brass. I do like the little, probably a Glock or something, that's a glockenspiel that playing right along, or some chimes or bells or something. Now the fire cue. Needs more percussion other than just the cymbal, and more brass and more strings than just the French horn. So build that out. Use this idea, but introduce a melody, introduce more staccato brass hits, maybe the ostinato string part to kind of follow that pace and push it forward. Let's bring all these in together. I like some of the instrumentation ideas. The plucked lead line from the earth cue, the glockenspiel through the wind cue. Sounds like the mix does get dominated by that brass in the fire cue. So work on, maybe just bring it down a little bit. That way you can make out more of the melodies from the earth cue and the water cue. All right, so good stuff overall. Looks like most people have the basic structure down of how things are going to work, how things are formatted for the game. We did hear some clashing rhythms and notes, so we always want to avoid that. That's probably the most core element of this composition. It is certainly the most challenging of the month. It is a reason that it is the third and last one. Even though it is only 4 cues, how they are fit together and all of the instrument layers and fitting it into the full composition does create most of the challenge here. So that should give us some solid information for your week 3 revisions. I am in the process of finishing out week 1 revisions. You turned in on Sunday week 2 revisions, so I will be finishing those out this week. You also completed the week 3 game compositions, as we just heard a few of those, so I will be getting those back to you in a day or so. Well, probably more towards Wednesday, Thursday. And what else do we have outstanding? That should get us into week 4 here, and as I mentioned, just a few things, assignments for week 4 to round out the month. We have our technical assignment and then your final project game captures. And to round out all of your games, you have the sound effects for Angry Bots. And you've already done the sound effects for 2D Platformer. You've completed the music for all three of them. So we need sound effects for Angry Bots. There is no sound effects in the Palace of Orinthalian composition. It is entirely just kind of a place to showcase all of your music. So this will complete all of the games. So you have already done a round of sound effects, so the general flow of this is pretty similar, but I do want to point out a few things more specific to Angry Bots. Let's see here. Let's go find that assignment. And here we are back loading files, which for some reason is not what my computer wants to do today. But it still needs to, so it will. Let's go to campus and sure. No. Online. Week 4. Holy cow. It's like it's never opened up a folder before. It's not like it's done this over and over again. Almost there. In the assignment. Haha. Writing it word by word on the screen. Even my video has given up updating. I need to just wipe my computer clean and start fresh. Just sacrificed and started all over again. All right. So the main thing that I want to get to here is the asset list of all of the sounds. So with 2D Platformer, you created, I believe it is 18 sounds. For this game, it is 22 sounds. And this game has got a whole bunch of fun sound design because it is robots and explosions and techie sort of sounds. So lots of interesting things. There are screenshots for each of the individual sounds. You can certainly play through the game to reference what sounds are. But I again would suggest that you go take all of the sounds and from the original game and import them into a logic session so that you can reference how they are built. Wow. Come on. Just scroll. Just scroll down. Ooh, here we go. Look at that. The hamsters in my computer are old and tired, and they do not want to run anymore. I know. PDFs should not give you the spinning wheel of death. They are really kind of basic. It's not running anything spectacular here. All we're doing is scrolling through a PDF. Hopefully. Come on. Okay. I'm going to stay right here, and I'm not going to really move it all that much. So, sound effects list. When you are building this particular project, when you're building all of the sound effects, I would definitely suggest looking through the list of sounds and finding similar sounds that you need to create, and going out and searching out all of those sounds, bringing them in together, and kind of working them in one shot. What you should not do, and the thing that you should avoid, is to look at the first sound and go, okay, I need to do rain. And then go to the internet and search out some rain sounds, find a couple of sounds, bring them back in, edit them down, loop them, name them, format them, and bounce them out. And then go, okay, next, I need to do hum. And then go find sounds and bring them in and go one by one. It will probably work at a slower pace. So if you look at all of the sounds, one thing you might notice is that there are a lot of explosions in this particular game, and there are a lot of doors in this game, the wave files that you need to create. So I would go, and even on just those two things, you need to find lots of different door kind of sounds, and this is all in the future. No, sometimes they'll get like a wooden door creak, like it'll just like it'll sound like a knob and a door opening. That's not really what we're talking about. We're talking more about Star Trek level of the doors opening and closing at together. Pneumatics works very well. Servos work very well. Some of this, when searching out sounds, is just opening your thesaurus and thinking of other common terms to find what you're looking for. Let's see. Of course, we have exterior rain, interior hum. Let me actually load up the sounds here so we'll listen to them as we go along. So here is a copy of Angry Bots. Maybe? Why? Why would you not drop it there? Why would you go hide it somewhere on my desktop? Not there. Oh. No, it was just taking 4 minutes to move a file onto my desktop. Oh boy. Let me go open Logic, or bring Logic back. Oh, slow. Don't close. Creating a new session. All right, here we'll just do one track and hope that worked. Angry Bots. So you go to Show Package Contents, and you wait for the folder to open, and then to actually, there we go. You go into Contents, and you wait for that folder to open, and then you go into Data, and don't go too fast, you have to wait. Once you're in Data, then you go to Streaming Assets, and you wait, and you think about it, and then you go to Sound Effects. And maybe, just maybe, it will just kind of, there we go. Okay, so we got all of the files here. I'm just going to highlight all of them. And I'm just going to drag them into Logic. And then you can reference them, what the waveforms look like, how long the files are, how loud the files are. Place them all on one track. And maybe it's going to load. There we go. So this will get you started with how the sounds are formatted and how you might build your own sounds. Again, do not use these actual sounds in the bounces. They should not end up in the final versions of everything. You'll probably have to space them out a little bit to make some room for them. Create a couple of tracks below. 2, 3, there we go. And build your own sounds, import and build your own files here. Let's go back here and actually listen to some of these sounds. Turn down my volume to make sure that this isn't crazy loud. So here are some of the doors. Here is airlock door close. Eventually. It's very challenging for my computer to do. It's not like I don't play WAV files every single day. Yep. It has to go bit by bit. Oh man, if every sound is going to do this, this is just going to be not worth... Oh, maybe? Play? Okay. That was a door close. Let's see how long the next one takes. Okay, that's not too bad. All right, so door open and close. You'll have multiple different doors. Sometimes you can get away with the close just being the reverse of the open for the door. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't. Exterior rain and interior hum. These are both looping files. Is that not playing? Why is that not playing? You probably heard none of that. Let's try that again. Door close. Twiddling the thumbs. You just played that sound about 30 seconds ago. Why is it not available now? Okay, that's close. This is open. Like I said, typically the close can be the reverse of the open. Here's exterior rain. Here's interior hum. Those are two looping files. Some of the explosions. Turn this down a little bit. Oh no. Uh-oh. What happened? Check. Okay. So, that is the flying buzzer zap. So each one of these has an explosion when you destroy that particular enemy. There's the buzzer explosion. There's patrol explosion. Super duper huge. There is spider explosion. There is spider self-destruct. Which I think is not a very good sound. So there's a lot of explosions. There's also more doors. Here's interior door close. Interior door open. Player, what else do we have? Footsteps for the patrol mech. Left and right feet. Player shooting. You should probably time your weapon to the same number of hits there, because I think that is timed to the animation. This is when you hack the computer in the game to open up the door. Terminal hacked. Alright, so a list of different sounds to create. Reference the original sounds, listen to them, import them into a Logic session, and then build your own sounds beneath those. Use the use the asset list and all of the screenshots to be able to tell what sound is what. And that should get you set up for all of the sound effects working in the game. Test them out in the game. Put your sound effects for 2D platformer and Angry Bots into their respective games, and make sure that they are loaded up and playing back correctly. Because your other assignment this week is final project delivery. You will be capturing one more version of all 3 of your game projects. So now that we've hit the end of the month, you have a complete version of music and sound effects for 2D platformer, music and sound effects for Angry Bots, and music composition for Palace of Renthalion. With all of the revisions and any changes that have been made, you'll do one more capture of each one of them, and then you'll upload them to YouTube. And the assignment for this week, this assignment is a class discussion post, so you will post all 3 of them up. Embedded in YouTube, embedded in FSO, so we can just all click on them, play them, check them out. You can check out what everybody else has done, post comments, and just kind of see where everybody is at with their final final versions of their games. So you have the games themselves. Those are yours to use and distribute. You can later down the line, you can change the music and change the sound effects, improve it or change it if you want to. But the games are well and good you can distribute them out to whoever you want, and they can check them out and use them. But they are Mac games, and dependent on the game and your operating system and your computer and all sorts of things, 5 or 10 years from now, they may not necessarily function as long as Mac keeps updating their operating systems and technology changes. But a video is probably going to last a much longer time. So having a video representation, maybe you lose the game or you lose the technology or the computer changes or whatever, the video is always going to work. So having a video, people are much more quick to click on a YouTube video and watch a video representation of your work in the game than downloading a file. A lot of very smart people don't want to just randomly download files off of the internet, even attachments and emails or links on a website, and just go play some software on their computer. Rightfully so. But people really have no problem with clicking on a YouTube link and going to watch it. So anything to make it safe and easy. Everybody on the internet is lazy. They don't make it too much work for them. They just want to click on a link and boom, they can start watching it, and it's awesome and amazing. You don't want the experience of going and finding your music to affect their idea or opinion on the music itself. So having some sort of easy way of showing off and distributing your work. Now you would have videos that you can post on your own website, your own blog, share them around. It is a whole lot of an easier format to show off what you're capable of doing. So that's generally the purpose and the direction for our final game capture there. The real purpose of the class is certainly to expose you and show you this side of the industry as a whole, entertainment industry, music industry, and show you that your music is just as viable in a game as is in any other format. Hopefully you can take the material that you have, and the other big purpose is kind of the same purpose as you get into all of the later classes, is creating demo material, showing off your work. You should be constantly gathering all of the work that you do in class and outside of class to put it together into a portfolio, website, online format that you can blast out to everybody, post it up on social media and send it out to employers and clients and respond to job applications and all of that stuff. Because when you leave the program, you will need a resume, you will need a portfolio, probably that includes some sort of online website, blog, YouTube account, SoundCloud account, social media accounts, so that you can tell the world what the heck you're doing in wherever you are, wherever you live. That takes time, that takes constant tending to and updating and fixing. And so if you walk out the door, or you're done with the program, and you then have to start gathering everything together, creating videos, creating demos, posting it up on websites, and then building some sort of portfolio page altogether, that takes time. And it's better to start gathering all of that stuff, have it all together, start putting it up even in the most basic format so that you have something to show off. Then you can refine it with all that wonderful extra time that you may or may not have beyond the degree program. So that is generally the purpose of this class, and hopefully a goal of yours as you consider or you continue on through the degree program. Because as there was chat earlier on in the class, in the GoTo training chat, about only a couple months left, you are definitely at the home stretch of the entire degree program. You can start using career development services now, where they can start getting you involved and in their databases and getting you help with your resume and portfolio, and finding gigs out there and sending you opportunities. There is a constant work towards all of that, and that's kind of a goal of this class and as you go forward. So let's go ahead and wrap it up there. We saw some good projects from game composition. We talked about our new week 4 assignments. Hopefully everything should be smoothing out. It gives us time to wrap everything up for the end of the month. If you have any questions, I'll stick around at the end here, or otherwise send me a message, and we can meet up and chat about whatever needs to happen. So other than that, good luck heading in towards week 4, and yeah, we'll see you again on Thursday. All right, thanks a lot.